Graphs of simple rational functions. Now, any graph of the form y is equal to ax plus b over cx plus d can be obtained from the graph of y is equal to 1 over x. We first use division to write the fraction as a mixed fraction. Then we use the transformation previously described. Now, in this section, our starting point is either going to be the graph of y is equal to 1 over x, or the graph of y is equal to 1 over x squared. All right, now points on the graph y equal to x, 1 over x. When x is 1, y would be 1. When x is 2, y would be 1 over 2, which is a half. When x is a half, y would be equal to 1 over a half, which is 2. When x is a quarter, y would be 1 over a quarter, which is 4. When x is 4, y would be 1 over a quarter. Sorry, when x is 4, y would be 1 quarter. So those are points on the graph y is equal to 1 over x. Other points are like minus 1, 1, minus 2, minus a half, minus 4, minus a quarter, minus a half, 2, and minus a quarter, 4. All right, so those would be points on the graph y is equal to 1 over x. You could similarly analyze the graph of y is equal to 1 over x squared. All right, let's have a look at example 48. It says sketch the graph of f of x is equal to 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. Well, as we said previously, we're going to start by doing a division. So we're going to have x minus 1 into 2x plus 3. Now x goes into 2x 2 times. 2 times x is 2x. Minus 2 times 1 is 2. You're going to subtract, and you're going to be left with negatives as a negatives are positive. You're going to be left with 5. So this would mean that f of x, which is 2x plus 3 over x minus 1, is the same as saying 2 plus 5 over x minus 1. So now if I make let us say g of x is equal to 1 over x, my starting point, if that's my starting graph, now g of x minus 1, this would be the same as saying 1 over x minus 1. Now I could obtain the graph of g of x minus 1 from the graph of g of x by a horizontal translation of 1 unit, or by moving the graph of g of x is equal to 1 over x 1 place to the 1 unit to the right. Now 5 times g of x minus 1, this will be the same as saying 5 over x minus 1. Now that would be a vertical a vertical stretch of factor 5. And that simply means that whatever point I have on g of x minus 1, I'm going to keep the x coordinate the same and multiply the y coordinate by 5. And then finally, f of x would be equal to that would be 5 times g of x minus 1 plus 2. In other words, this is going to be 2 plus 5 over x minus 1. So the sequence of transformation would be that 1, I'd have to move the entire graph. The graph of y is equal to 1 over x, 1 unit to the right. Now, with the graph of y is equal to 1 over x, that's what's displayed as we on the screen right now. This is the graph of y is equal to 1 over x. Both the x-axis and the y-axis are asymptote. Now, if I move this graph, the entire graph, shift it 1 unit to the right, the new asymptote is going to be the line x is equal to 1. So the asymptote, the y-axis asymptote is going to shift over to the line x is equal to 1. So that's my new asymptote. So my sequence is 1 unit to the right, stretched by a factor of 5, and then 2 units upwards. All right. So if I move it 2 units vertically upwards, my horizontal asymptote is going to change to y is equal to 2. So this is the line y is equal to 2. This is the line x is equal to 1. So the original asymptotes, which are the y-axis and the x-axis, have now moved to the vertical asymptote is now x is equal to 1. The horizontal asymptote is now y is equal to 2. Because I both move the graph 1 unit to the right and 2 units up, thereby shifting the asymptotes. Now, if I move it 1 unit to the right, the point 1, 1 is going to become the point 2, 1. 1, 1 is going to become the point 2, 1. But then there should be a stretch of 5 units. So the x-coordinate remains the same, and the y-coordinate is going to go by, I'm going to multiply the y-coordinate by 5. When I multiply 1 by 5, you get 5. So it's going to move to this point. And then the last transformation is a vertical translation of 2 units, which moves the point to here. So the point 1, 1 in y is equal to 1 over x becomes the point 2, 7 in y is equal to 2 plus 5 over x minus 1. Points like 2.5 is going to go to become 3.5 first. Then if you multiply a half by 5, you get 2.5. And then if you put it up 2 units, that would be 3.5, 4.5. That's the new position of this point. So the point 2.5 becomes 3, 4.5. 4.25, 1 to the right becomes 5.25. Multiply a quarter by 5, you get 1.25. And then 2 units up, it becomes 3.25. All right. So the point 4 1/4 becomes a point 5, 5 and 3/4, 5 3 1/4. All right, so let me draw the top half of the graph. All right, now the bottom half of the graph. Remember, we have three different types of transformation. First, the entire thing gets moved 1 unit to the right. So the vertical asymptote is now the line x is equal to 1, which is this line here. That's my vertical asymptote. The point, let us say, -4 -1/4. First, 1 unit to the right would be -3 1/4. Vertical stretch of 5 units. So if I multiply -1/4 by 5, I'm going to get -1 1/4, which will put me here. And then if I go 2 units up, that would be 2 units up would carry me 1 here, 1 would carry me here, and 2 would carry me here. So -3, -3 3/4 would be my the new point. The point 2 -1/2. I'm going to move it 1 to the right, so that is -1 -1/2. Multiply the -1/2 by 5, that becomes -2 1/2. Then if I put it back, if I then move it 2 units upwards, it moves back to -1 1/2. That's the new position. The point -1/2, 2, which is here, 1 unit to the right, it becomes 1 1/2, 2, multiply by 5, multiply the y coordinate by 5, that would brings you to 1/2, 10, and 2 units up from 10 will bring me back to 1/8. That would put me about there. All right. Any other point? I don't think I have any other point to work with. All right, so let's work with this. All right. So all right. So that would be the next half of my graph. And what is happening here? So the green graph would be the graph of f of x, which is equal to 2x plus 3 over x minus 1, which is the same as saying 2 plus 5 over x minus 1. All right. Now, in order to sketch this graph, I started out with the graph y is equal to 1 over x. Then I move the entire graph 1 unit to the right. Then I multiply all of the y coordinates by 5. Then I move the entire graph vertically 2 units vertically upwards in order to get the final graph, which is in green. All right. The asymptotes change from the y-axis and the x-axis to x is equal to 1 and y is equal to 2.